Welcome to the Tarot Connection. I wanted to start with modifying tarot decks because of all the things that I had planned out to do. This seemed like the most useful and practical for you. So we're going to be doing two things. One is trimming and then the other is embellishing a deck. And so these, I thought I'd start with the materials. So I have a Thoth deck that is unopened, and I chose this one because I think it's one that benefits the most from the trimming process. The images are even more fantastic than they are with the borders on them. The next thing, which is an essential, is a trimmer. And I like this Fiskars trimmer because it gives me a lot of control over how the trimming works out. I can see it, it cuts well, and it goes pretty fast. The next essential is some scissors. Sometimes the trimming doesn't work. And if you don't have something like this, which is a corner rounder, you can use the scissors to round the corners, and I'll demonstrate this. This is a $50 corner rounder that I got at Oregon Laminates. And it's a little bit overkill, but I do a lot of this. So that's trimming. For embellishing, if I'm going to write on the cards, this is the pen that I like, and it's the Sakura Pen Touch in silver and gold, 1mm. For gilding the edges, I like this Painter's Metallic Gold. Gold or iridescent on the cards. At the very end, I use the Liquitex Basics, which you can get at just about any craft or art store. So I'm ready to start trimming my deck. The one thing that I didn't mention is that I like to use freezer paper as a work surface. It protects my kitchen table. Not as essential for the trimming process, but it will help me scoop up the little bits and pieces. So I have a Thoth deck here that I'm going to trim. And I'll give the paper to my helper cat. There. And so here is what it looks like before. It has this ugly gray border around it. And actually this is the new printing from, probably this year, from US Games, done by the Swiss company. And it's better looking. The border is less gray. There was that one edition, if you remember, that was green. Then it went gray, and this is kind of cream. So this is actually not too bad, but I still want to trim it down because I like the size better and the way it looks. So, if you haven't done this before, you might want to take some scrap paper and just practice cutting it out because you may feel intimidated by your first deck. This is how I use the paper trimmer. I think I like it on this side. So you're going to line up this groove here with this part of the card. And so I can see on both sides, and the first cut's the most difficult. And if you're a neat freak and like things perfect, don't modify your decks. Just go with the way they came out of the box. So I have it lined up pretty well. And then you just slide this blade down. And I was able to adjust it a little bit because I can see here that this indentation is now lining up better. And then trim one. And I could have gotten that. I'll probably go back and redo that when I'm done. Once you've done the first one, then you're closer to the edge and it's easier to see how to line it up. And you probably should also be using this stop here because that will keep your cuts square. And so there's the next side. The next side. And I'll go back and trim up this last little bit here. So there's my trimmed down full card. So repeat until you've done all 78, and then it's time to trim. So I'll do one more. there we have the Fool and the High Priestess. So this deck comes with 2 extra Magician cards, and they were alternate paintings that were not approved by Crowley for the end. So I think what I'd like to do is use that to show you the scissor method of corner rounding. So I'll trim it up. So sharp scissors, card, and you just start the cut and then rotate like that. My first attempt of demonstrating the corner rounding with scissors was off frame, so I'd like to try that again using this extra Magician card. Sharp scissors, hold the card in your non-dominant hand, and you rotate the card or your scissors slightly as you take off the edge. And so it's just this kind of curvy cut motion like that. And they're not all going to be perfect, but they will not catch, and I kind of like the unevenness. So there you have trimming with scissors. The corner rounder goes like this. Squeeze it to cut, slide your card in, cut. You can do multiple cards at once, and I would if I were doing journal paper, but since they're cards and I care how each of the cards looks individually, I would probably cut them all by hand in that way. This is the 1/8 of an inch corner rounder. I also have a 1/4 inch. And so it's just a matter of preference. This is better for smaller cards. The corner rounder goes like this. Squeeze it to cut, slide your card in, cut. You can do multiple cards at once, and I would if I were doing journal paper, but since they're cards and I care how each of the cards looks individually, I would probably cut them all by hand in that way. This is the 1/8 of an inch corner rounder. I also have a 1/4 inch. And so it's just a matter of preference. This is better for smaller cards. The 1/8 of an inch is, actually this is like 1/8 of an inch. The 1/4 inch just gives you a rounder surface. So I'm going to do the rest of the deck, and then we'll be back for some ideas for personalizing and modifying the deck using acrylic and paint. Well, I'm back from my trimming and rounding. I left 3 cards unfinished so you could see the difference between before and after and how they look, and the size is really quite different. And you know, if you just look at it, you might not think about how much border there is, but a big bunch of border, and the size is, you know, what I want to be carrying around and have on my altar. So there we go. The next thing that you can do with your deck is to do something with the edges. One of the downsides of doing the trimming is the edges are not beautiful. Not bad, you know, this is the cardstock's white, so it looks pretty good. There are a couple things you can do. One, if you just want the edges to go away, you could run a basic black Sharpie over. What I like to do is use this painter's calligraphy pen. Oh, there's a lot of packaging. So I have a tissue paper here to get it started. You tap it until, shake it and tap it until the paint starts running. And I like to, for both this step and the step with the pen touch pen, I like to have a paper towel because if the ink flow gets out of control, then you can kind of dab it up. So, pretty easy technique. It's all about the materials again. Just run the edge of the gold pen along the card. Don't be tempted to do a big stack of them. It's not going to turn out or take very well. Consider this to be bonding time with your deck. And so put on some music, enjoy the process, paint around. You'll want to, after you do each card, set it out to dry before you stack them because otherwise they may get stuck together a little bit. I'm not feeling really the draw to write on my thought deck. I kind of want to leave it without words or numbers. But I'll show you this universal weight that I also cut back. I think I cut this one down 2005. And initially I did it to learn all of the esoteric titles. There are a handful of them that had the word material in them and I was getting stuck on them. And the other thing I did that you can see here is I put the astrological attribution on the card. And by mistake, I took it to a public event and was a little bit mortified because I consider that to be like a cheat sheet for me. But I found that my querents typically liked it, and so it's not a bad thing. The other thing I want to point out about this is when I was doing the side of the pen, or the side of the card, I got pen on the front, and I kind of like that look. The other thing to understand is that when you do that, when you put gold on the edges or right on the cards, that it's not permanent. And all of this will rub off, but I think that's good news. If you don't like it, it'll eventually rub off. You can kind of scrape it off if you wanted to. And when, like in this case, the gold edging has worn off, then I can just put magic back into my deck and regild it. The very last thing that you might do with your deck to embellish is to put acrylic paint. And again, it's not going to last forever. And I wouldn't go crazy with this because it'll affect a little bit the way your cards shuffle. But a little bit is quite nice. So I'm going to demonstrate with the iridescent. And so I have just a little bit of paint on my freezer paper. And I'm going to put some iridescence on the moon. And I can tell from the light I have right now that you're not going to be able to see it on camera. But when it dries, there'll be the moon or whatever I decide to paint like that will have just a little bit of shine. And so that's it. I hope that you consider modifying your decks and that they are beautiful and that you enjoy it. I will put a couple of pictures at the very end in a slideshow format that shows some of my other decks that have been cut down. Thank you.